What happens when the world's largest untapped high-grade iron ore deposit finally begins shipping at scale, and the first consistent supply chain is already tied to a single major industrial consumer? In March 2026, the vessel RTM Cartier arrived in Dalian, carrying more than 200,000 tons of high-grade iron ore from Guinea's Simandou project, a development that signals a shift in how global steel supply chains may be structured in the coming years. This moment does not resolve whether Simandou will rebalance global markets or reinforce existing dependencies, but it establishes the starting point of a new phase in resource competition. If this situation escalates into full-scale production and stable exports, the global iron ore market could experience a redistribution of supply influence away from dominant exporters, such as Australia and Brazil. If the project fails to maintain consistent output due to political, logistical, or financial constraints, it may reinforce the existing structure of supply concentration. If it succeeds in a controlled and gradual manner, Simandou could introduce incremental competition while strengthening long-term bilateral supply arrangements, particularly between Guinea and China. The broader context of this development is rooted in the structure of the global iron ore market, which has historically been dominated by a small number of large producers. Australia and Brazil have long supplied the majority of seaborne iron ore, with companies such as Rio Tinto playing a central role in extraction and export. China, as the world's largest steel producer, has remained heavily dependent on these external sources to sustain its industrial base. This dependence has shaped Beijing's long-term strategy to diversify supply sources and reduce exposure to price volatility and geopolitical risk. Simandou's significance lies in both its scale and quality. The deposit, first explored in the 1950s during French colonial administration, was not fully understood until the 1990s, when geological surveys confirmed the presence of exceptionally high-grade ore. This type of ore allows for more efficient steel production, requiring less processing and generating lower emissions per unit of output. As global industrial systems increasingly prioritize efficiency and environmental performance, access to such resources becomes strategically valuable. The project itself has been shaped by decades of instability. Ownership disputes, legal challenges, and political changes within Guinea delayed development for years, preventing the deposit from entering global markets despite its known potential. The eventual formation of joint ventures, including Simfair, brought together the Guinean government, multinational mining firms such as Rio Tinto, and Chinese partners who contributed financing and infrastructure development. This alignment of interests created the conditions necessary for the project to move forward. The infrastructure component is critical to understanding the current milestone. The March 2026 shipment represents not just the extraction of ore, but the completion of a functional logistics chain connecting inland mining operations to coastal export terminals and onward to international markets. Railways and port facilities, developed with significant investment, now enable continuous movement of material. The fact that the ore was processed immediately upon arrival in Dalian using dedicated crushing facilities indicates a level of integration designed to ensure consistency and efficiency for downstream industrial use. Key actors in this system include the Guinean government, which seeks to transform resource wealth into economic development, and Chinese industrial and financial entities, which aim to secure reliable access to high-quality inputs for steel production. Rio Tinto and its partners operate within this framework, balancing commercial objectives with geopolitical considerations. The collaboration reflects a broader pattern in which infrastructure investment and resource access are closely linked. Recent developments illustrate the transition from experimental to operational phases. In December 2025, Guinea shipped its first cargo of approximately 200,000 tons of Simandou ore to China, marking the initial entry of the project into global supply chains. Earlier shipments in January 2026 involved mixed cargoes and incomplete logistics, highlighting the challenges of establishing a new export system. By March, the delivery carried by RTM Cartier represented a fully integrated process, with ore sourced entirely from Simfair operations and transported through a coordinated supply chain without interruption. The scale of the project underscores its potential impact. Valued at approximately $23 billion, Simandou is the largest mining investment in Africa's history. It has the capacity to generate billions in export revenue for Guinea, and could position the country as one of the continent's leading mineral exporters, second only to South Africa by value. This shift would not only affect national economic indicators, but also alter regional dynamics, placing West Africa at the center of a critical segment of global commodity flows. One possible scenario involves rapid scaling of production, combined with stable political conditions and efficient logistics. In this case, Simandou could significantly increase global supply of high-grade iron ore, reducing price pressure and weakening the market dominance of existing exporters. China would benefit from diversified sourcing, while Guinea would gain increased economic leverage. However, this outcome depends on sustained coordination among all stakeholders and the absence of major disruptions. A second scenario involves renewed instability or operational bottlenecks. Political changes, infrastructure limitations, or disputes among partners could slow production or interrupt exports. Under these conditions, the project's impact on global markets would be limited, and existing supply structures would remain largely unchanged. The initial shipments would then be seen as proof of concept rather than a transformative shift. The geopolitical implications extend beyond the immediate participants. For resource-rich countries in Africa, Simandou represents a model in which large-scale investment and international partnerships can unlock previously inaccessible assets. For global markets, it introduces a new variable in supply calculations, particularly in the context of evolving industrial and environmental requirements. For major consuming nations, it highlights the importance of securing long-term access to critical raw materials through both commercial and strategic channels. At a systemic level, the development reflects a broader transition in how global supply chains are organized. Control over infrastructure, from railways to ports to processing facilities, becomes as important as control over the resource itself. The integration of these elements allows for greater predictability and efficiency, but also concentrates influence among those who finance and operate the system. What emerges is a reconfiguration of relationships between producers, consumers, and intermediaries. The flow of iron ore from Guinea to China is not simply a transaction. It is part of a larger framework that connects resource extraction to industrial output through coordinated investment and long-term planning. This framework has the potential to reshape trade patterns, but its ultimate impact depends on how it evolves over time.